Hello, hello. Welcome, beautiful women warriors. Today, we are here to talk about identifying negative cycles and breaking out of them. Today is going to be a little bit of a workshop. I started feeling sick yesterday, so we'll see how many women decide to join us, and we will see how it goes today when it comes to our group here. But welcome. If you're here, I want you to tell me one word that you're feeling for today. How are you feeling today? It's been a couple weeks since we met up. Well, welcome. So excited to be here again. Despite not feeling well, it's like my goal to go live this year with you all for every other week. And I'm really committed to doing that. So even though I don't feel the best, I'm here and I'm excited for it. And to talk about identifying and breaking out of negative cycles. I think it's important for me, especially because I know that me beginning this journey to inspire self love started when I was in a lot of negative cycles, just every day stuck in this place of tragedy, sorrow, shame, regret, resentments, anxiousness, feelings of depression, and a lot of anger. I was feeling a lot of those things when I first started the journey to inspire self love. And so I had to really work hard to break out of negative cycles. And how can you break out of negative cycles if you've never started to even acknowledge or see or identify, right, is the key word, what those negative cycles are. So I want everybody to think about what a negative cycle is like in your life. Oh, excuse me, now I'm going to sneeze. Um, and think about, like, have you seen those negative cycles easily in your life? Have you not? Oh, sorry, I've been sneezing a little bit extra because I've been sick the last couple days. So it kind of look like garbage because I woke up feeling like garbage. So, okay, I'm sorry. That's a negative thing to say. I don't look like garbage. I just didn't put much effort into getting ready today, okay? Which is okay because, I still love myself and it's okay to do that. See, negative cycle to break right there. It's really easy to stop and to speak poorly about ourselves any time of the day, any day, and whenever for any reason. And there's your proof, ladies. So it's always a work in progress, right? So, anywho, we just plucked that weed out of the mind, which is one of the things I want to talk to you about today to think about when it comes to breaking out of our negative cycles and identifying them, right? So, we have to consider our mind is like a garden. I'm sure some of you have heard of that our garden of life is within us. And so, we have these beautiful minds that can grow a lot of beautiful flowers, dreams, excitement, hope, joy, love, but sometimes it can get a little overcrowded with some negative things, which I like to refer to as weeds in the mind garden, especially, and even in our life, right? So when we have these times of unknown uncertainty or we have challenging stressors around us, sometimes it's like the little dandelions. They're so beautiful at times, and then you end up with a bunch of weeds in the garden or in your home, and you're just like, okay, now I can't handle all these weeds, right? So all the negative things in our life can be looked at as a weed. And then we can also think of the beautiful things in our life as a flower. So for me, I know when I first started my journey, I had not tended the garden of my mind in a very long time. As you saw just now, I was instantly tending to my mind garden, right? I had a bad negative thought of like my outer appearance today maybe isn't up to par with what I would like to be like because I enjoy getting ready. I enjoy doing my makeup. I enjoy, wearing clothes that I like, which I actually do like this outfit. I like this shirt and this cardigan. It's kind of comfortable and relaxed, but I enjoy it. And it makes me feel good wearing the color red. I like that color. Um, but I did not feel well this morning. And so instead of taking the extra steps and extra time this morning to get ready, I opted to sleep in a little bit because that just felt more right for me in the moment when I was not feeling well at all. And my sinuses are a little bit more cleared up. I'm taking some Dayquil today, so I'm not feeling horrible right now. So I'm glad that I stuck to it and I didn't quit out on showing up today for you ladies. So thank you for being here. Comment how your day's been if you're here live, or if you're in the replay, hashtag replay team. Go ahead and tell me how you're feeling too. I love that you are here, whether you're here live or on the replay. I appreciate your time. So we need to remember when it comes to those negative things, like I was mentioning, we have to just uproot them. The faster you're able to uproot the garden, the happier and healthier your garden will be when it comes to those negative weeds in our mind. Now, sometimes when we've not tended our garden, like I said, it can be overgrown with a lot of weeds, and sometimes we can't find any beauty in the garden. So that's why we're here talking about identifying the negative cycles and that we are going to break out of, because you have to think about the negative cycles almost like when a butterfly is in the cocoon, it feels like you're trapped and like you're nowhere to go and like you're stuck there, right? But as many of you know, the journey of a butterfly, right? They're in the caterpillar stage, we're growing, we're learning. And then the cocoon is almost like a negative cycle that needs to be broken, right? So after you deal with that time, that transformational era in your life, that moment in time, that event, that situation, that experience, right? Once you're kind of trapped inside this cocoon, right? And then you have to kind of like fight your way out of the cocoon so you can spread your wings and fly. And it can be challenging for a lot of us. At least I know for myself, it was a very difficult thing to break out and break free of those negative cycles, especially when I couldn't recognize them. So that's one of the things that we're here to talk about today. Um, I wanted to use those two analogies of the mind garden and the butterfly because no matter how weeded that garden is, you can always start one weed at a time to reveal the beautiful garden inside. But not only are we pulling out the weeds, but sometimes we have to plant the seeds as well, right? So sometimes we have to plant the seed of self love or of those positive statements, right? Of that positivity that you want to have. So a little bit later, I have a little step framework for you today that's going to be really easy and fun to remember, or that can be transformational for you. And so it just makes me think of my life and how when I started my journey, I just was running circles around, like for those of you that don't know my story, like I came from a toxic relationship. Before this, I was in a toxic relationship with a lot of excuses, a lot of disruption, a lot of insecurity, fear, frustrations, resentment. I was feeling more and more depressed in this relationship. And mind you, I already had depression at times. I didn't actually know I dealt with anxiety until much later on into my healing journey, but they kind of always, pardon, they were kind of always like one and one together for me. And I just didn't know. When you don't know that you're in a negative cycle, you can't escape that negative cycle. So I finally stopped everything in this situation. I was in a in a place that I was unhappy. I had been asking for, you know, work from both parties of the relationship. I was doing self-help books, I offered counseling, I therapy, like pleaded for this person to get help, and they just didn't want to. And that's okay because that's their life and that's their journey. And to begin with, I entered the relationship in a toxic place myself, wanting to change this person when I already kind of knew who they were face value, and that was wrong of me to do, right? So since I didn't reflect on those things before getting married, before moving forward, having a child, for my own selfish reasons, I ended up in the situation that I ended up in. And that was my part in it, right? Is that I kind of saw this, I saw red flags waving, hey, red flag, and I was like the little bull, just like, oh, hey, I want that red flag, I want that red flag, and so I kind of just went along with it all and ignored the red flags. And I just ended up in a toxic, abusive, emotionally abusive relationship. The thankfulness for me is, they didn't get physically abusive. Um, it started feeling physically abusive at the end a little bit. I did not get hit or anything, but I did feel very unsafe at the end of the relationship. The night that we separated, I felt like my life was going to be in danger one day, and I felt the anger and the red in the eyes. I saw that and I was just backed up against a wall, getting scream at. Is that how you say it? I was getting screamed at. And I really thought I was gonna get struck that night. Thankfully I had enough courage to speak up and say, if you hit me, I will call the cops. And so I was able to speak up for myself, and so that made him back away that day and, you know, went on to break stuff in the house and yell at me, and he, was very emotionally and verbally abusive that night, and that was just something I was never gonna deal with. I have never been a person that thinks it's fun to call each other bad names or to say hurtful things to each other. Obviously, like, I've been a teenager, right? And I've said mean things about friends, I've seen mean things about myself, I've said mean things to others, but, like, I just never thought that was a good way to cultivate a relationship both romantically and, to be honest, with ourselves, right? That's why it's not good to speak to ourselves in such a negative way. Um, and so that night forced me to have a separation and a break from the tragic, constant negative cycle that I was in. And so, because of that, I was able to start seeking more help and more guidance and more resources to help me escape and get out of that negative cycle. It was kind of like, like a hamster when you're running on that wheel. You know how hamsters have those wheels, they're just going, 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 and then they stop and get off of the wheel. And that wheel kind of still is going, but it slows down. So that's kind of what it felt like for me, as I tell you the story of getting off of these negative cycles and how to try to identify them. Is sometimes it's hard to identify them. Sometimes it takes a disruptive, difficult experience like the one I went through to shake up your world and to say, hey, something's got to give, something needs to change, something needs to happen. Hi, Charlotte. I think I see you here online. Welcome. So, we all have to go through these experiences of choosing to take a look at the cycles that we are part of. And don't get me wrong, we have negative cycles in a lot of life, but we also can have positive cycles, right? So right now we're talking about identifying in the garden of life, which I like to call also as the mind garden, those negative weeds in our life, the negative thoughts, the negative behaviors, the negative patterns, the ones that are not serving us in any positive way. Those need to be plucked out of the garden and thrown away. And sometimes, in place of the weed, well, you need to plant the seeds of positivity to create a beautiful landscape within ourselves. Um, so, because we are working on the transformative nature of, we're using the butterfly as an analogy today, um, it helps us to break free from the negative cycles of the cocoon that the butterfly goes through, right? Like, we're all kind of trapped in those cocoon moments when we're stuck in negative cycles, but to break free from those so that we're able to emerge from a butterfly. Charlotte, I see you commented here. It says setting boundaries. Oh, my computer's doing stuff. Setting boundaries is really hard, but once you start that, it helps so much with mental health. Exactly. And so sometimes that's the problem, right? Is for me, I was in that negative cycle of not having strong boundaries with myself, first of all, and with the people around me. And so I was stuck in toxic relationships, not only with my ex partner, but also with a lot of friendships that were I was consistently surrounding myself with because I didn't have boundaries of my own for self-respect and self-worth and self-love to myself. Um, so yes, so that was kind of some of the story. I'm not sure what you caught on, Charlotte, but I'm glad you're here. Welcome. And so as we think about the stories and the negative cycles that we are experiencing and living in, I wanted to come up with a couple steps that I have here, and I'm going to read some of them out. So we have the self-reflection and the acknowledgement, right? So we have to start by identifying our current negative patterns in our lives, and ask yourself what keeps you in a local and keeps you in an external locus of control. Locus. So there's this stat I was looking up. Sorry, I didn't talk about the stat. The stat talks about the locus of control. So people with an internal locus of control believe they have command over their own lives, while those with an external locus of control feel that their lives are controlled by external factors. So, shifting from an external to an internal locus of control is crucial for us to feel empowered and for our self love to really gain a forward step there. And I completely agree with that, right? Like I mentioned in my in the previous relationship I was in, I literally felt that my life situation was all his fault. Like I felt like this is a reflection moment. I was not correct in this moment, but like I felt like because this person was an addict and I was married to this person that was an addict and I chose to be with this person that was an addict, that my life kind of sucked more because he was an addict and I had no control over him being an addict. I could ask and ask and ask until I was blue in the face. It didn't matter. Every night I came home and he was either already drunk or drunk before the night ended at like 9 o'clock at night. And, everything that goes along with marriage and kids, obviously, I hope none of you have been through that experience, but if you have, then like you just feel like you're trapped in this never ending cycle of asking for change, asking for your needs to be met, and not receiving any of those needs to be met, which, I've learned now that that's his choice, that's his life, that's what he's going through, and the decision to get help was his, just like how it was mine. And unfortunately, in this situation, it didn't really work for us. But I had to take that time to self-reflect and to acknowledge that I had a big part of that issue, of that controlling factor, that I kind of entered the relationship knowing that there were red flags, but for my own selfish reasons, I felt that I could either change him or help him, or, that he would change because he loved me, like all these things, when I should have just accepted him for who he is up front and made my life choice off of that instead of allowing like the controlling factors to engage me into the point that I just got so stuck into this negative place. So, he unfortunately, we had a really ugly separation and divorce, but what do you do? And I just laugh now because at the end of the day, not much has changed. Not much has changed in the relationship dynamics that we experience because he's the same person and I have changed. So, okay, that's a lie. Things have changed. Things have changed in the relationship dynamic because I am my own person now and I don't allow the negative things that I feel are contributed from his stuff doesn't affect me as much. Does that make sense? I think I'm getting to that. I got a little confused on what I'm trying to say, but yeah, that's the main gist is I used to be extremely affected by his actions, choices, thoughts, and behaviors. And since I've reclaimed my space and my life essentially and am focused more on my actions and thoughts and behaviors by plucking out those negative weeds, then I'm able to make my life choices based in my choices, right? Like my values, my morals, my wants, my desires, that of course are always thinking of my daughter is a big reason I do things, right? And that's a big exciting part of it. Anyway, I'm a little getting distracted there. I'm sorry. So, anywho, so that's part of my story. We're going back to this steps for helping break out. So, our first step was self reflection and acknowledgement. Another step is to reframe the language, right? So, changing our negative self talk into positive affirmations. So, for example, transform I have to do this to I get to do this. So, once we embrace a mindset of gratitude and empowerment, then that helps us to plant those seeds of positivity into our garden so we can start cultivating those beautiful flowers in our mind and our garden of life instead of those negative. Um, Another step that you can take to break out of these negative cycles is to view uncertainty as an opportunity. I mentioned that sometimes we get trapped in our negative situations because of the unknown, right? So we should embrace uncertain situations as challenges rather than threats. And each obstacle is a stepping stone for growth, not a barrier. Um, I think depending on where you are in your journey, that step might sound really hard or very easy. Sometimes it's a little bit of both, but that's the exciting part is that we have so much opportunity. And I know for myself, being in a place of like, I've been in a very depressive state several times in my life that a lot of the times I viewed everything as a challenge. I mean, when I viewed everything as a threat, I felt like I had no options. Versus when I felt it was a challenge, something challenging I needed to figure out, like putting a puzzle piece together, or trying to go through a maze, or just trying to get something to fit nice and organized inside of a drawer. Like we can be little things, right? That's a way for me to grow and to think outside the box instead of just thinking of it as like a blank wall and a barrier in front of my face. Um, Another step, which I feel like I've shared about myself already today, is embracing responsibility when it comes to our own actions. So, learning to reflect on our experiences and our choices and our actions and learn from those mistakes without dwelling excessively on the negative. Because when you're able to do that, it helps foster resilience and growth. One of the things about inspiring self love is remembering that we are here to love ourselves. And to love ourselves, we have to accept the bad parts of ourselves and the positive parts of ourselves. We have to learn to embrace ourselves and give us the courage to see the things that we maybe did wrong, right? Like I said, I essentially went into a relationship thinking I could help change somebody's perspective on the desire to be an alcoholic to not being an alcoholic. Was that right of me? No, it was not. So now that I'm dating again, now that I've gained self love, it's more like, okay, let me observe what this person is like. How do they handle stress? How do they handle life? How do they handle work? When he gets upset with me, how is he with me? Does he blame me? Does he adjust? Does he treat me poorly? Is he romantic? Right? I get to now observe what he's like and then make my choices based on my morals, values, and desires on if that's something I want to continue doing. Now, if the girl I was today met my ex husband now, I probably would have steered real clear far away because he was very honest, right? Like, yeah, I'm an alcoholic. It's like, oh, okay, you want to work on that? Yeah, I do. It's like, okay, but do you? Right? I should have observed that. Does he really mean that? And, retrospectively, he didn't. Now it's a whole other situation. Who knows? We don't really talk, right? Divorce life. And like that was my part in that is I just wanted to change someone that I shouldn't have changed. Instead of changing him, I should have been changing me. So that's kind of what focusing on inspiring self-love is about, is what parts of myself need work? What parts of myself do I have control over? What parts of myself can I remove that negative weed and put in the positive flowers of self-love? Um, so with that, because sometimes embracing responsibility can be very challenging, it helps us take a moment of deciding and defining a compelling future. I'm looking at a computer, so I wanted to say computering. Compelling future. It's fine. I can talk. Um, where we need to clarify where you want to go, right? Like for me, I need to clarify where I want to go rather than just what I'm trying to avoid. So by focusing on the things you're avoiding, then we may not get to where we want to go. Versus if we're focusing on where we want to go, then we're able to align our choices, our actions, our thoughts, and behaviors around where we want to be. And for me, when it started, like I just wanted to feel sane. I wanted to feel normal. I didn't want to feel so trapped and anxious and desperate for attention and for love. Like I had to give that to myself. Um, so those are some 5 steps. I'll read them together or give them to you again all together, just in case if you're not taking notes, it's a great time to jot them down. Go ahead and rewind if you're watching the replay, or go get some paper and you can pause and come back to this video later. But some steps to break out is to, one, reflect on yourself and acknowledge those negative behaviors or patterns in your life that you've experienced, either now or in the past, things that kind of keep you stuck in those negative cycles. 2, you want to reframe your language regarding those specific negative cycles. So, for example, you want to change or transform I have to do this to I get to do this, which helps us embrace our mindset and gratitude of empowerment. We get to view our uncertainty as an opportunity. So, although we may not know what's coming, it's still an opportunity to learn something, to grow, something that can challenge us, not just threaten our existence, not threaten who we are, but a way for us to cultivate our own growth instead of it being a barrier in our life. 4, we'll have to embrace our responsibility in our actions and learn from those mistakes without dwelling in the negatives for far too long, because then that allows us to foster resilience and growth instead of, being in that negative cycle. Um, and then step 5, we'll want to define a compelling future that helps us to clarify where I want to go instead of focusing on what we're trying to avoid. So that will help us to reach our ultimate destination by creating a future that we desire versus, like when I was stuck in those negative cycles, I just thought that was going to be my life. I thought I'd always be stuck there, watching my ex partner sleep on the couch, wishing for opportunities to enjoy life, to have fun, to explore. I always had this fear that we would travel abroad and I would just be like deserted, abandoned in a foreign country or in an unknown state by myself, watching him sleep by 7 o'clock at night. Like that wasn't a way for me to experience life. And that's literally what I saw our future like. And so instead of doing it by myself with somebody there, I am now doing it by myself, growing, learning, and hoping that I can make a positive impact in my life for my daughter and for other women in in the world. So thank you so much for being here. Like I said, I hope that you're able to find some sort of value here in this group. So if so, please comment value and anytime here in the replay live, and just know that those are important things. Real quick, I have a comment here that talks about Veronica saying how my garden grows flowers of good thinking and weeds of depressive thinking. Yes, exactly. And that's exactly how I feel as well. I also had those experiences when it came to my mind garden. Is those weeds were always negative. I was always able to like find like a way to attack myself and to tear myself down, which I think you ladies might have missed it. And if you were watching the replay, you probably caught it at the beginning where I was like, oh, I look like crap today. And it's like, okay, well, I just didn't get ready. It's not that I look like crap. I just felt like crap this morning. And so I didn't take the extra desire. I had no extra desire to get up and get more ready like I normally like to, right? For that compelling future aspect. Like I feel more self-love when I do my makeup, when I take a shower and wash my hair every day, even though I know people say you're not supposed to wash your hair every day. Okay, I'm sorry, I do. So like to me, this is like oily hair, but like that's okay because I'm here, I showed up, I didn't feel well this morning, but I still took time to love myself through that and to break out of the negative cycle of hiding because I didn't feel well and to use that as an excuse to not show up. I did it. I'm here. Yay, go me. I'm so excited. Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you, Veronica, for being here. Thank you to anybody else who's watching the replay. And let's just be happy that we made it. We're here. We are here on another beautiful Wednesday. Let's see here. I just had a couple more things I wanted to share. I wanted to share a quick framework. So if you have your notes or you're taking notes or you want to come back for some notes, this is going to be a quick step framework, literally step, STEP. So one, we kind of went over it with the other steps is self-awareness. So we want to cultivate our awareness of our current thoughts and behaviors, right? And two, we want to transform our thinking instead of having negative self-talk. We want to make it empowering. If you can, if you want to, faith-based affirmations. And then we want to embrace change. E is embrace change so that we can take small, achievable steps towards the goals that we want to work on and that we want to move forward in, specifically around self-love, right? That's kind of my thing here. And then we want to have P as the purposeful living, right? So we want to live our life according to our newfound self-purpose, our self-worthiness, our self-love, right? So like I mentioned earlier, I started talking poorly about myself, and that is not who I want to be. So I had to pluck that out of my mind, replace it with something else like, hey, sure, maybe I didn't take time to get ready, but I showed up. I'm still here. I am feeling mostly better. I'm thankful that this is passing quickly. And that's my step into self love today is to just follow through on the goal of being here every other week with you women warriors. So, that being said, I haven't been feeling the best today. So, does anybody have any questions, thoughts, comments that they'd like to share with us before we close out for tonight? I think we have someone live here on Facebook, got someone live in Zoom.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
free to share.
Okay, this is Veronica, and I really like the E because I mean, and I've heard E's that are like evaluate the situation, but I like the idea of just embrace myself, because I really need that not only self awareness, because if I've got self awareness but I don't embrace myself, I'm gonna be hurting and wanting to harm myself, going, "Gosh, I don't like what I see." But then if I realize I get to have a purposeful life, and so I get to embrace what I've got and then go forward with it, and that changes everything. Thanks.
Yeah, of course. And I do love that embracing change and embracing ourselves, right? Like we can love ourselves gently through those bad experiences, through our previous choices, right? Like I said, that self awareness, that self reflection isn't about shaming ourselves further, it's about loving ourselves through that. So embracing our own self and where we are today enables us to make that positive, purposeful change that we desire in the future. Not
Uh,
sure if anybody has anything else they
Question.
want to share in the comments, or Veronica, if you want to share in
Yeah,
person,
it's
welcome.
the idea of purposeful living. Like I'm seeing you actually do it. So it's like, yay, I'm getting the example. There you go.
Thank you. Yes, that's the exciting part, and like I mentioned earlier, like I haven't been feeling well, and normally when I don't feel well, I use that kind of as an excuse to not show up. And so because this is my journey to inspire self-love for myself, it's like having that space to acknowledge like, okay, I've noticed when I don't feel well, I don't show up for myself, I don't show up for the group, I don't show up for sometimes my daughter very well, and I'm trying to make those little changes in my life, right? So by taking time to do these things, even if I maybe don't feel the best, like that is a break in that negative cycle. And I know I say it all the time, but thank you so much for being here, being live with me, being in the group, because it gives me so much love and strength and positive encouragement to be here. And although it feels like this is still the very beginning of my journey, I've been working on this Inspire Self Love movement for a while now. And it can only continue to get better the more I cultivate and plant those seeds of love, encouragement, and, you know, pluck out those weeds of negativity. All right. Well, ladies, thank you so much for being here today. I hope you'll join us in 2 weeks. We'll be meeting again on Wednesday, March 12th at 7 p.m. here again in the Zoom group for a VIP experience or in our Facebook Live group, Inspire Self Love Women Warriors. I am so excited. Next week, we are going to be focusing a little bit more on identifying these negative cycles that we want to break out of. And I want it to be more of a collaborative event. So if you're here, I hope that you will join us, or if you're catching the replay, you have time to join us in the future, in supporting each other in breaking out of those negative cycles. So if you know anybody, if you want to bring a friend, invite them into the group, invite them to join us on Zoom so we can support each other, discuss what negative cycles we need support on, encouragement on, and then we'll keep moving forward here in our group. So that way we're able to support each other, because inspiring self love is really hard to do sometimes as a solo person and by yourself. So I hope that you received some value today. I hope you'll join us again next week as we can make our tribe be a tribe and support each other, talk about the things that we're working through. And I can't wait to see you then. Bye.